afternoon. It's 10 after 2 in Los Angeles. It's Wednesday, the 14th of April. It's the Transportation Committee. My colleagues will be joining. We're sorry to keep you waiting. We're going to begin the meeting right now as Vice Chair and go over a number of items. Mr. John.
Yes, sir.
How are you? What do we got in front of us?
You have 6 items on today's agenda. Items 1 and 2 are renewal of preferential parking districts.
Okay, anyone here to speak on 1 and 2?
No cards, sir.
Okay, so order approve both 1 and 2. What about number 3?
Item 3, DOT verbal report relative to the...
We'll hold that. For my colleagues, number 4.
The motion regarding a bike corral on York Boulevard.
Great. All right, any cards for that one?
Yes.
Good, we have some right now. We'll hear the public comment. Now, here's how it works, since I'm chair. I give a 1-minute public comment. If you need more time, take it. But we want to try to get your points across so we can act today. There's a beautiful Noguera family right here, I believe. Is that so nice to see you? Your father was one of the greatest ones ever. So special. Okay, here we go. For item number 4, public comment. Jason, Mitch Haney, is that right? Sorry, Jason. Eddie Navarrete, come on up and sit down right here. Crystal McMillan. Got it. Matthew Schroeder. And Adele. Is Adele here? Yeah, thank you. Good to see you. Okay. Okay, good. All right, good. Here we go. Got it. Put it right there. Feel comfortable? You want to start?
I'll begin, sure.
Yeah.
I own a restaurant in Silver Lake called Local, and we've been promoting bike riding, and we had some bike racks installed recently, and I was just trying to sum up as pertaining to this corral, what happens for small business. We offer discounts to bike riders, and it hasn't really become a big promotional tool until we got our bike racks put in front of our restaurant. And so I was trying to give you a business person's perspective on how this problem actually can be like rearranged and turned into a positive for both the business and for the community.
Good, so it's positive. You recommend approval?
Great. I think it's a great idea. I think it's going to help out a lot of people.
Thank you very much. Next.
My name is Eddie Navarrete. I live at 3762 Division. I'm a resident in the area. I live right off of El Paso and Division Street. And I ride my bike in this area every day. I want to say I'm coming out to support this bike corral. I'm proud that I'm in a district where this motion is coming forward. I think it's important to lay out the framework and foundation for more bikers to come on the streets, and I think by having this in the street, this will help with that. I think it's also consistent with the LA City bike plan proposal in 2009 bike proposal, where they're planning on putting in one of several new bikeway projects, one being a 2.21 mile stretch between Eagle Rock and and Figueroa on York. So last, I just want to say that I appreciate that this coming through, and I'm in support.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. My name is Matt Shodorf. My wife and I have a cafe on corner of York and Avenue 50 called Cafe de Leche, and we were kind of behind starting this to get moving. We would love to have a bike corral on York Boulevard. We have a lot of customers and employees, even like half of my staff rides bikes, and I think it would be a visible and very it would promote more bicycle riding in the neighborhood and better for our business.
Very good. Deputy.
Good afternoon, council member. Adel Viscar with Councilmember Weezer's office. Our office worked with Matt to craft this motion, and we worked with Matt also when he opened up his business, and his business is one of maybe 5 or 6 along that corridor that are really blossoming that area. We think it's a great idea. We know that there might be some issues with location, but I know that Matt and our office are willing to work with LADOT to make sure that we're able to get a corral that's safe and that still accomplishes what Matt's goal is. So again, we're in support, and we just ask that you support our office too. Thank you.
Dennis Hinman, you vacate your seats there. Stephen Box, Ramon Martinez, Steve Itano. Mr. Box, will you take your seat? Okay, here we go.
Yes, my name is Dennis Heineman. I am all for this because it's a boon for small business, and the city should be promoting and helping small business any way they can. It increases the capacity for parking for small businesses. So, therefore, I'm all for it. And also, it encourages people to get out of their car and use other modes of transportation for short distances also. So.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Ramon Martinez. I'm a staff member with the LA County Bicycle Coalition. I'm also a volunteer for Cycle, which is a bike nonprofit in the Northeast, which has been supporting this effort. This bike rally is all about easy, quick, cheap projects that we can do to support safe communities. And so I encourage the Transportation Committee to move forward, with the rest of the City Council, encourage the DOT to do this as quick as possible to get this thing in. This is going to make York a safer, more functional place to be. I think safety first. We have to think about safety in terms of bicyclists, safety on a street that's had lots of issues in the Northeast. We've had, Swark is another cafe up the corner that had a car go right through the front window. So we've got to deal with safety. We've got to deal with dangerous traffic. We've got to slow it down. We've got to promote bicycles. This is easy. This is quick. This is going to put us on the map. We don't need to, really think about what Portland has done, what San Francisco has done, what New York City has done. This is easy, quick, fast, cheap, and safe.
Thank you very much.
Hi. Cities all around the country, big and small, have found ways to to implement bicycle facilities in a cost-effective manner. They found ways to overcome the burdens of a stale and dysfunctional bureaucracy. 200 miles of bike lanes in 2 years in New York City, 22 bike corrals in Portland, Long Beach, San Diego, San Francisco, Seattle. The list is amazing. It's a national agenda. Now look at Northeast LA. There are streets that have had bike lanes approved for 14 years, but they haven't been done. 14 years. And bike corrals are a simple concept. We could do it as a pilot program. It doesn't have to be studied to death. You'll know right away if it works or not. I'm just asking that please help us move forward. Help us remove the roadblocks that keep things from happening. We can't wait 14 years for a study to whether a bike corral is feasible.
Thank you very much.
Stephen Box, I live in Hollywood. Ramon said, let's look at some other cities to see what they're doing. I would say let's look at Los Angeles and see what it's doing. I live in Hollywood, where we have street-side space set aside for valets. We set it aside for morticians. We set it aside for tour buses. We set it aside for all sorts of folks outside City Hall. You'll see space for the media. You'll see space for FedEx, for Sparkletts water. What you don't see is space set aside for cyclists. So I would say, why don't we treat cyclists like all other modes of transportation and set aside some space for them so that they can actually get to their destinations and secure their bikes? And this is one huge innovation. A bike corral is very efficient. You've heard lots of arguments in favor of it. It's actually shocking that we as a constituent group have to argue for our space on the streets. But nevertheless, here we are asking you to support this particular motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Joe Litton. Mary, I want to say it right here. Mary Tokita. Yolanda Nagura with the great Nagura family. Come up, Yolanda. And is it Sandra? Forgive me for the Bike Coalition. They got beautiful script. Sorry, I apologize. Come on up. Joe.
Hi, Joe Linton. First of all, Councilmember Lunch, thank you for your support of bicycling in the beautiful 4th District. And I think that there are a number of locations that would be excellent for bike corrals there. I think the York location is really good as a pilot, that we can test this out, see how it works, show business owners how good it is. We can take away space that would go to one car, that would bring one customer to one shop, and put a dozen bikes there, and so it's good for business to bring more customers to business. It gets bikes off the sidewalk, so we free up that sidewalk space for things like cafe dining and other street furniture, and really helps us activate the street for a very low cost. I would just encourage you to support the motion and to make sure that we get this first pilot bike trail in the city in the next 3 months.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Tom. I'm Mary Takita. I'm Vice President of the Eagle Rock Association, Terra, and I'm also with the LA Community Garden Council. I'm also a mom, and my son grew up in Eagle Rock in the Northeast. Wanted to say that this is our neighborhood. We live here. A lot of us walk on a regular basis around the community. This is what the people want. They want more alternative transportation in their neighborhoods. They want to calm the traffic down. They want to see less fatalities and more alternatives for people to move their families in a safe manner. And I want to say also that the LA DOT is on notice that they need to change their culture and their ways and respond to the community and work with the community going forward, because this is what the will of the people is, what we're hearing, and we'd like to see the same from our representatives. Push them in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Tom. Yolanda Noguera.
And hold the clock, Mr. Clerk. Her father, Michael Noguera, is one of the first business persons that I met 35 years ago when I started with the city. He had an office right at Avenue 55?
50 in York.
50 in York, forgive me, right down Franklin High School.
For a building.
And was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful contributor to the goodness of all the community. Back on the clock. Thank you.
Well, on that note, then maybe you'll approve the bike corral. You've been in the building, Tom. I love you. I've known you for a long time. Right. And I'm the building owner, and I support the Bike Corral Coalition.
Okay. Thank you.
My name is Sandino Navarro. I'm a graduate from Occidental College, which is right up the street from where the planned corral is going to be located. I just wanted to also voice my support for the implementation of this corral, and I'd like to bring up the issue of security. I myself had a bike stolen a couple months ago. As you may know, while crime in the city has gone down, car thefts included, bicycle thefts have gone up, and so in order to deter those thefts, we need more safe places to put our bicycles, and that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Ryan Belzinger, is that correct? Ballinger, I'm sorry. Thanks.
I just, another business owner on the block, own the building and run a restaurant out of there, and I'm all for it, so.
Great.
That's all I have.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Could I have the city staff at the table? Want to report on it?
Michelle Maurer with the Department of Transportation. I'm the city's bicycle coordinator. We've been working with Council District 14 on this for some time now.
Come a little closer to the mic because I think it's not picking up.
Since the motion was first introduced. We think the concept is a good one. Of course, staffing is really a tough one right now. I think the city attorney's office may talk about the municipal code that gives us the authority to look at moving this forward. We are looking at putting a bicycle lane on York, and it's currently in our queue of bicycle lane projects, so we would recommend moving this around to Avenue 50, right around the corner. There's a red curb zone where we think this could fit.
Off the main street onto the side street.
Yeah. So we can talk a little bit more about that, but it would be our recommendation that the business owner pull a permit and get this moving. That would be the quickest way for us to move forward with the project.
And do we have funding for this project?
If the business owner pulls the permit, the business owner will put the funding forward to move the project forward.
Okay, that's correct, Mr. Gurr? Okay.
If I'm
Madam City Attorney.
Yes, Judith Real, Deputy City Attorney. There is a Los Angeles Municipal Code, Section 85.04, that allows for the establishment of a bicycle parking zone on city streets. And the code contemplates that there's two ways to establish this zone. One is to have an individual, a private individual, apply for a revocable permit to place a bicycle rack in a public right-of-way. And there are certain requirements in this code, and then the Board of Public Works also has some requirements. And they will be working, the Board of Public Works would seek the approval of the Department of Transportation to make sure that this conforms with all of the specifications, the safety specifications that need to be met. And so that's one avenue to take, and that would not require the city to have to set aside funds for this. The code does authorize the Department of Transportation to establish a bicycle parking zone on a public street. That would require an outlay of money. It would also require the department to develop guidelines for the exercise of its discretion to determine where to put it. And so those are two different avenues that can be taken, but there already is a Muni Code section in place that would authorize this.
Thank you very much. We're just joined by Mr. Koretz. We had a public hearing. We have support from the council district. We have support from the adjacent property owner. We have a suggestion from the department. I'd like to ask that we continue this 30 days, but to prove it, direct staff to report. Deputy, could you go out there, like in the next couple of weeks with staff to that location and try to find some resolution? We want to approve this, but there seems to be a suggestion to move it around the corner.
Yes, could I make the recommendation that if we are going to pull a B permit on behalf of the owner, that the owner come in with two designs, maybe one for York and one for the small street, and LADOT can determine where
we will get hung up is when we talk about clean streets and the ability for the sweeper to get to the curb.
Okay.
You know, this happens here. Where you get hung up is you have something in the street that someone may run into. Your chances are higher to run into York Boulevard than you are on 50. I would just say that if we could approve this and go forward, but look at those options. I'm looking at you, Yolanda. Look at those options and then come back. Would we want to have it come back in 30 days, or you want to come to council?
Have it go to council.
Have it go to council. Have it go to council to do that. Also, anybody go to Burroughs High School in Burbank at all here? They just did a diet on the street adjacent to Burroughs. I don't know if we want to look at that for York Boulevard. One thing that's interesting about York and Northeast Los Angeles is that you have Occidental College, home of Jack Kemp and Barack Obama, among two, and our city clerk. So our city clerk's going to volunteer to get the paint to create the new bikeways between those two locations. No, I'm kidding you. So with that being said, I would just say to your office, focus, and I'm saying to all the bike advocates, we're only going to be successful, I believe, if we focus in certain areas, whether it's around USC and downtown, whether it's around Northeast Los Angeles, college, often City College, UCLA, a lot of bike concentration. So if we could focus in those areas, all of a sudden you start connecting them together. Because I know you made a complaint about 14 years on some of these issues. It is a long awaited. And I do recommend absolutely everybody ride on the same flow of traffic. Many cyclists are riding on the wrong way into traffic, which scares me because not everyone's going to see them, and it's dangerous and it's illegal. So I don't want anyone to get hurt on that. With that being said, we'll move it forward to council unless you have any questions, Mr. Koretz. So ordered. Thank you. Next item.
Item 5, DOT report relative to the Wilshire Boulevard Bus Rapid Transit Project. Did you want to take the item now?
Good. At number 6, we're going to hold. Continue number 6. Let me continue number 6, okay?
Item 6 continued.
And Rye and Dennis Hinman on number 6, we're going to continue. So for the record, you don't need to make public comment. We're continued number 6. Yolanda. Hold on, I want to say hello to Mr. Rosendahl. Take over the meeting as chair. Thank you so much.
Let's give him a round of applause. Love him. I had to put something into my system after being down there. What item are we on, Maria?
You have items 3 and 5 remaining. 5 is the DOT report relative to the Wilshire Boulevard Bus Rapid Transit Project.
Yeah, okay. All right, let's do number 5 then.
Item 5.
You get a lot of public comment on this as well. Would public want to speak after they hear it or before? You do it now? Okay, let's do it now. Come on up, folks. Just have a seat and enjoy your moment. Paul? Hello? Hello? Yeah. Yeah. Mark, I'm about to run a meeting. I'm in the transportation, and I'm chair. Just gonna hold it right there. Okay, let's, so would you talk to Mike? Thanks. My constituents, they're wonderful. Okay, so who do we have first?
Roxanne Stern, Westwood.
Okay, Roxanne, let's go for it.
Okay. I'm here to support the project that is being put before you. I don't know that any decisions will be made today, but it's really important to get the most people from here to there in the most efficient way possible to get cars off the road. And a bus-only lane will certainly will contribute to making that happen. And I would urge you to get behind this and go for it. And the jut outs are going to stay, so that should alleviate the concerns that many of the Wilshire condo constituents
What
have.
district do you live in?
5.
Mr. Kretz. Okay, great.
Is that good or bad?
Oh, everything's
Neutral.
Everything's
I think it's good.
It's all good.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate your support. Please.
Okay. Buenas tardes a todos ustedes. Mi nombre es Rosa Miranda y soy miembro del Sindicato de Pasajeros.
Good afternoon. My name is Rosa Miranda, and I'm a member of the BRU.
Estoy aquí pidiéndoles a ustedes que aseguren que el proyecto de carriles solo para autobuses de la Wilshire no se ha atrasado más y se ha implementado a tiempo promedio del público de 2013.
I'm here to urge your leadership around ensuring that the Wilshire bus-only lane is not delayed and is implemented on time, as is being promised to the public in 2013.
Yo personalmente estuve organizando en Pico Union y muchos de los residentes están muy orgullosos de este proyecto, como el de un pasajero que en su anterior trabajo fue despedido por llegar 2 veces tarde a su trabajo y la culpa de eso fue el tráfico. Y en este momento trabaja en esta misma área de Santa Mónica y agilizar este proyecto mejorará la vida de él y de muchos pasajeros de la calle Wilshire.
I've been personally been organizing in the neighborhoods of Pico Union and around the area to tell the residents about the Wilshire bus-only lane, and many of the residents have, expressed unanimous support. Especially one passenger, one bus rider who told me that he was fired from his job for getting to his job late twice in 1 week, and the reason was because the buses were stuck in traffic while he was trying to get to the west side. And so this project will alleviate and improve the lives of many passengers on the Wilshire Boulevard.
Al estar platicando con dueños de negocios como el manager del restaurante La Parrilla, que se ubica en esta área de Pico Union, y expresaba que estos proyectos no solo mejorará la movilidad de pasajeros y también mejorará la vida de muchos residentes, aire más limpio, menos congestionamiento de autos, muy importante, atraerá más clientes a su negocio. Proyectos así tiene el potencial de realizar los barrios acerca del proyecto.
So, and also I've been talking to many of the businesses around the corridor, one in particular with the manager of La Parrilla, a restaurant on Wilshire Boulevard in Pico Union, and he expressed that, improving mobility will, bring a lot of improvements to the residents, clean up the air, as well as bring more clients to his business. And so he expressed that improvements like this will revitalize the local neighborhood.
Concejal Rosender, agradezco su apoyo como presidente de esta mesa y este comité y el liderazgo que usted ha mostrado y las ganas de trabajar con el sindicato de pasajeros de todos y como pasajera beneficiada con el carril solo para autobuses, le pido también el liderazgo de todos los concejales aquí presentes que sigan dando prioridad a este proyecto que tanta falta hace para los residentes de Los Ángeles.
I would just like to recognize and thank the leadership of Chair Rosendahl. As a bus rider who's going to be benefiting from this project, I'm very glad that there is strong leadership on this body to move this project forward.
Quiero hacerles entrega de cartas de dueños de negocios ubicados en Pico Union apoyando este proyecto y pidiéndoles que cumplan con la fecha del estudio de impacto medioambiental.
And lastly, I would like to, turn in these letters signed by business owners around Pico Union, basically supporting this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Muchas gracias. Appreciate it very much.
My name is Crystal McMillan, and I'm very excited about the draft of the EIR that's being released today, because I'm here today to speak in support of the Wilshire bus-only lane. Not only as a member of the Bus Riders Union, but also as a resident of Koreatown, who regularly travels along Wilshire to work and shop and visit my friends. Since the possibility of this project was first announced, many people have spoken of what it could mean for the health of the environment to decrease car traffic on Wilshire, and there's also the positive impact of the green jobs that will be generated. I've spent the last month organizing and speaking to people who live and work along the Wilshire corridor from Vermont Avenue to West LA. I visited the director of a continuing education school who spoke to me about his students, many of them from low-income families who are transit dependent and must travel between their jobs and school. Faster, more efficient travel along this vital corridor will make a true immediate difference, and I can tell you as someone who worked all through college and as a bus rider, how big a difference time can make in the quality of your educational experience. I think that one thing that all the people I've spoken to, both business owners and students, have in common is that despite the present economic downturn, we all have hope, and we're all working towards a stronger, brighter future for Los Angeles. And we want to thank you, Chair Rosendahl, for your strong leadership, and hopefully we can move this project forward. Thank you.
Crystal, appreciate your comments. We have 4 more cards. Come on up, folks. Irwin, Stephen Box, Joe Linton, and Dennis Hindman. Apologize for any mispronunciations. Sir, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Joe Linton. I'm here on behalf of the Green LA Transportation Work Group, and the bus-only lanes are a high priority of ours. We're a coalition of environmental justice groups, and I'm wearing a hat from the New York City DOT. A couple weeks ago for a street summit, we had a woman named Jeanette Sadi-Khan who's doing phenomenal things for bikes and peds in New York. And she's one of her big goals is to do bus-only lanes in New York to speed up the buses. Their reputation is that their buses go the same speed as people walk in New York, and so she's experiencing bus-only lanes. And we brought her here as a bike and ped advocate, and I was surprised she preached to Gail Goldberg and to Rita Robinson. If you want to get a lot of mobility for cheap, you want to get a lot of people across your city without wasting space and money, bus-only lanes are the way to go. And it's something New York's doing, and it's really an important thing for capacity, and I urge all of you to support the bus-only lanes on Wilshire.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate your comments.
Hi, I'm Dennis Hindman, and what I say about this is it's quite simple that if you leave it as it is, it's going to remain congested, get more congested. Their throughput is not going to increase dramatically. But if you go to a dedicated bus lane, the overall capacity of the street will increase, the throughput, although you will decrease the amount of cars that can go through there. So it's a trade-off. You're not going to satisfy everybody. The drivers, some of them will be objecting to it, but you will increase the throughput through Wilshire Boulevard by using that.
Good. Well, thank you very much for your comments, Dennis.
Great. Good afternoon. My name is Erin Steva, transportation advocate with CalPERG, and I would like to echo others' sentiment and voice CalPERG's support for the bus-only lane. It's pretty clear that the region does need to dramatically revamp its transportation system, particularly along the Wilshire corridor. It is one of the most congested areas. And we need to provide reliable, efficient public transportation connections between where residents live and where they're going, like business centers. One group that we work with closely is students. Our UCLA students are incredibly excited about this project because they want to be able to travel more easily around the city. And it will overall improve the quality of life throughout the corridor. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it. Stephen Boss, where are you, Boss?
He's outside.
Would you tell us?
He's gone. He's
Tell him it's
gone.
either now or never.
Hey, man, if they ain't here, they ain't here. No. Huh?
Come on up, staff.
Yeah, if they ain't
Let's
here,
get a
they ain't here.
report on this. If he shows up in a second, we'll just let him get to the mic. Okay, Stephen, you're up.
What are we on?
We're on what you put for number 5, which is the Wilshire-only bus.
Corral.
Go for it.
Stephen Box, I just rode my bicycle down Wilshire Boulevard the other day. It's a painful journey. I can think of many reasons to be in favor of this project, not the least of which I've ridden some big boulevards in other cities, like in Munich, where the transit and the transit corridor and the cyclists, they share the same lane. It's hard to believe, but it's pretty easy. It works really simply. You don't run into the big thing. So I'm really in favor of the bus. We're talking about the bus-only lane? Whew. Because this would be an accommodation that would suit many folks, including the cyclists. And as you know, the cyclists would be sharing this particular lane with the buses. And it works well in other large cities. But most of all, Wilshire Boulevard's a great boulevard. If you've been to Barcelona and walked the Rambla, if you've been to Munich and walked the big boulevards, this should be our big boulevard. This should be the showcase, if you will. It should bring people together, and I think that right now it's just a shame that Wilshire has fallen into such disrepair. I'd love to see it repaired for many reasons, not the least of which is I'd like to be able to ride my bicycle down Wilshire Boulevard. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Stephen, for your comments. Let's have a report on where we are on the Wilshire bus-only lane. As most will know, is that we put a motion, and Mr. Koretz did the motion. I seconded it. It was unanimous that we go forward with this EIR business and then do a report back at a certain point. Here we are in April, and we're getting a report back. So go for it.
Good afternoon. Kang Hu with LADOT. In the past 6 months, we've been working with Metro and their consultant
Metro, come on up too, by the way.
to conduct the EIR. We are going to clear the original project, which is the bus lane from end to end, and also there's a project alternative that will retain the jet out in the west side area, and also there's some minor modification to the project. So these two alternatives will be clear in the EIR. And the traffic impact analysis has been largely completed, and it shows that some intersection will have significant impacts on Wilshire Boulevard and some parallel streets, because once the bus lanes are in, there will be traffic that will be diverted from Wilshire to parallel streets. And we're going to report all this detail in the draft EIR. And administrative draft EIR will be submitted to FTA for review this month. And they will take about 45 days. And also
FTA, what is that?
Federal Transit Administration, and they are the funding agency, and they will also be approving the environmental document. Yeah. After they review the document, and then we will be able to release the draft EIR to the public for review for 45 days. So it is expected that that will be available in the summertime. And then we will have to come back to look at the final EIR. So there's a process that we have to go through in the next 6 months. We will hope to finish the final EIR around January of 2011. And after that, we will be able to start construction. But we've been working with Bureau of Street Services and also Bureau of Engineering that they expect some difficulties in implementing the bus-only lane because of the recent staff shortage and also the anticipated major budget cut in the next fiscal year. So we are, as part of the report, recommending that within the next 90 days, the LADOT will be working with Bureau of Street Services and BOE to come up with a detailed work plan after the next year's budget is settled down.
Thank you. Please, add to it.
I think he said it all, and we have some...
How about MTA?
Well, I think it's good to say that Metro and DOT have been...
Sir, your name?
Pardon?
Your name?
Oh, Rex Gephardt, Director of Regional Transit Planning at Metro. And I think it's been a fantastic project that these two agencies have been working on a long time. It's an innovative project. We see a lot of benefits. The federal government rates this as an extremely high project. The FTA does. Federal Transit Administration is looking at this project as a pilot project for the United States. They can't wait to see this construction start.
Okay, in our meeting we had yesterday, pre-meeting for May, I brought up Mr. Koretz's concerns by his condo folks.
Yes.
And I know he'll ask some questions too. There were some positive comments made. Could you just share that with us?
Yes, we're going to, Susan Bach, LADOT. Thank you, John. We did develop a project alternative that retains the jut-outs in Condo Canyon and uses the money that is saved from that retention to extend the repaving of the curb lanes along Wilshire Boulevard in the most impacted areas, especially in the mid-city. And we also truncated the line a bit on the eastern side, where Wilshire reduces from 3 lanes to 2 lanes in each direction to reduce traffic impacts in the Westlake area. So in essence, Condo Canyon will still look the same as it does today in terms of the jut-outs. There will simply be an additional bus lane.
Yeah, I might say that there are 5 council members areas that are directly impacted by this, and I have instructed you all to go meet with them individually, give them full briefings, especially if they're not on this committee. And as the public needs to know, it's Herb Wesson and Ed Reyes and Paul Koretz, Tom Labange, and myself, Bill Rosendahl. We're the five. Then there's County Supervisor Zev Yaroslawski. Also in the meeting yesterday,
And Mark Ridley Thomas on board of it.
and Mark Ridley Thomas and Zev Yaroslawski are the two supervisors. And I suggested that those meetings take place too and get their leadership support. And so to me, that is a key backdrop that's necessary. I also in the pre-meeting talked about the city of Beverly Hills. And now we're going to go forward and make a presentation to them and see if we can get their interest and involvement. Is that where we're at on that? Am I right?
Right, we have a meeting scheduled at Beverly Hills, April 26th.
Very good, very good. Now, if it's okay, I'd like to let Mr. Labange and then Mr. Koretz.
What are the limits of this project?
We have a map, and actually I have a couple boards if you'd like a little presentation.
You could just tell me, I mean...
Limits are from Valencia on the east end, which is close to Alvarado, to the city of Santa Monica.
Right. I have a serious problem with our failure to fix Wilshire Boulevard between Crenshaw and La Brea. And from what was discussed here, you estimate when would there see construction on this improvement?
Well, the current schedule calls for the early 2011. And
Yeah, so here's right now, we have these streets that are absolutely horrible, failed, where the buses can't even ride on, where there's probably claims against the city because we've had that here. Can this project be broken up? Right now, there's no parking on Wilshire Boulevard anytime between Crenshaw and basically La Brea, or just past La Brea. This is a pretty good throw of it. Can we break it up and start that part of the project now?
Councilman, we explored this issue with FTA. They consider this as a one project.
I got it. Well, I want to explore it with them, because I want to close the lanes, because I don't like to see the buses go over the side. And have you been on it? Have you seen how horrible it is?
Yes.
When I was on the MTA board, I would try to get Roger Snowball and others out there to look at it. There was a time that this project was going to be accelerated to fix that. But time missed its takeoff, and they can't combine this with this newer project, which is this longer one. And also, I'd like to discuss, too, if it does go, you mentioned me with Beverly Hills, San Vicente is a 6-lane roadway. Could it go to Wilshire and then divert up San Vicente over to Burton Way and then go Burton Way and then try to figure some connection to Little Santa Monica? And come off of Wilshire if you're having problems on Wilshire, because now Big Santa Monica has been improved, and you've looked at that. You've taken too long to do this, and I'm not talking to any of you there. I'm talking to the people who E-repped it 4 years ago or 10 years ago. It's very disappointing to see we're not going to be able to fix Wilshire to 2011 plus, and it's horrible. I mean, the people are unsafe to come down the street right now. There are. I took pictures the other day, and I'll bring them to the next committee, Mr. Chair, to see that. And the other thing, too, why fool ourselves if this is Wilshire Boulevard? Should we start this at right now Western, where is the terminus of the subway, and then go from Western west? Because to go through the Miracle Mile, through the Wilshire Center, Koreatown area, or Westlake, you have different components. Have you ever thought of that?
Yes, we have.
And what do you think?
Well, we thought that it would take a while to get the subway running out there, so in the meantime, we wanted to get...
No, the subway goes to Western right now.
Right.
So if you go right now to Western, you do have a full major highway with 3 lanes in each direction plus channelization all the way west. And even in Mr. Koretz's districts, they have 7 lanes in some part out in the area past the city of Beverly Hills.
Well, the concept behind this is called Bus Rapid Transit. It's funded by the FTA through a very small start grant, Bus Rapid Transit grant, and that was consistent with the Metro Rapid program out there, those red buses which run from Valencia to the city of Santa Monica, actually.
They run from Commerce all the way there, not Valencia, but they run from Commerce.
But on Wilshire Boulevard, they start at Valencia, and then they go up to 6th Street. So on Wilshire Boulevard, it's from Valencia to the ocean. And that was the limits of this project without going to Santa Monica, because we didn't think we needed lanes in Santa Monica. That's why we chose this length of corridor, and the federal government agreed with that and funded it in its entirety.
How much did they fund?
They funded, out of the 31.5 million, they funded about 26 million, I think it is.
Yeah, would you put asphalt or concrete?
Good afternoon, Council members. Ron Olive, Bureau of Street Services. The original scope of work for the reconstruction was from Western to Fairfax, and while we all agree concrete is the best material to use for the bus lanes, there was never enough funding. I think we were earmarked for $11 million for that reconstruction work. So we've, for about the last 9 months, we've had an asphalt mix design out there that's rut resistant, and it's been working out very well, and we're planning to use that, and it would fit in the budget. Now, as the environmental process goes forward, we're understanding that budget may be increased, so we still need to determine if we're going to fix more gutter or if we're going to extend the 3 miles that we have earmarked.
But your buses, the 725 and all the others, are very heavy.
Right.
I'd like to meet you all out there, and I'd like to ride that 725 with you, right in the front, where the driver's well is.
Right, and we've
And
had
see how you feel when you go by Rimpaw and you bounce up. You'll think you're at Magic Mountain.
We have driven the FTA up and down that corridor in the curb lane only in the back of a van, and halfway down the corridor, they said, we give up, we like this project, let's get it funded.
Okay, can we start this project now? Because see, right, that's what I'm asking. If this section, if you could ask the federal government if there's stimulus or anything connected, I'll turn my time back to the chair, but I think you got my point, and I'm looking forward to working with you all.
Okay? Yeah.
Thank you, Tommy. He obviously knows the Wilshire Boulevard like the back of his hand, so the more you involve him in that, the happier.
Right.
Right. Mr. Caress.
Yeah, I have a million questions, but I'll ask one out of the order I was planning, just because we were talking about money saved from the bump outs in the Condo Canyon portion of my district on Wilshire, and putting that money into Mid-Wilshire. Now, immediately east of that section is arguably the worst, if not one of the worst sections of Wilshire, which is the area just east of Comstock by the country club on both sides there. So I would argue that if we had those savings in that immediate vicinity, ideally we would put some of that into improving one of the worst, bumpiest areas perhaps in the whole city. Are you considering that?
Yeah, Councilman, there would be about $6 to $7 million saving, if you will, for not doing the jet removal. So that money will become available, and we are working with Bureau of Street Services and looking at different segments. The section that you mentioned east of Comstock is in bad shape, and we understand that. But then we also have to look at the potential cost increases for the western to Fairfax. So we have to take care of that section first, and then we'll look into other sections, including the section you just mentioned.
Well, I'd certainly want to know before I voted on approval of this project whether this was actually going to mitigate some of the problems in my district or not.
The bottom line on this is the grant was going to reconstruct 2.6 miles of Wilshire Boulevard, Fairfax to Western. We now doubled that length to about 4.9 or 5 miles with the money that we have, and it's up to the city to make the decision as to where they want to reconstruct the Wilshire Boulevard.
Okay, well, certainly that would be my encouragement. Right. It's a relatively small stretch, but it's in terrible shape. Now, I know there are intersections and parallel streets that are going to have heavy traffic impacts and apparently can't be mitigated. So what are the results? What are those streets and intersections, and what are the results? How bad is that impact going to be, and where is that traffic going to go?
We have some preliminary results. There's a number of intersections that will have that kind of impact, but the impact varies by locations. A lot of the impact occur actually not on Wilshire. They are actually on Olympic and Pico Boulevard, because, as I indicated earlier, that once the bus lane is in, people will be diverting from Wilshire to other streets. So there are quite a lot of intersections that will be impacted on Olympic and Pico, but Wilshire has few intersections. The impact generally is about from level service D to E, or some level service become from E to F. And we are going to release those detailed information in the draft EIR.
Well, I hope we have some real planning for this, and what happens if this turns into a disaster, because Pico and Olympic as I'm sure Mr. Rosendahl is aware too, especially heading in both directions into Century City. In rush hour, it is already an unbelievable disaster. So if we add a lot more traffic to those streets, you almost are at the point where you might as well put on your roller skates and just take the sidewalks, because you'll actually be able to beat the traffic. And I'm not sure that that's a trade-off that we're ready to make without adequate alternatives.
Actually, the intersections are scattered all along the corridor, and it's just really a handful. There are a number over in the mid-city area. I think there are one or two in your district, perhaps. But it is not concentrated, and we do not expect to see any flashpoint, per se, with this project.
That's the real question. I mean, are we going to see a significant slowing in the key places, or is this going to be something more digestible?
We learned a lot of lessons from the demo project in about 2005, I think it was, in CD11. And we are trying to learn from those lessons by doing selective street widenings and introducing mitigation measures to try and avoid some of the problems that occurred with the first bus lane project in West LA.
And that's exactly what I have in mind. I know that was kind of a disaster, although a learning experience. Do we think that we can avoid that kind of a disaster as a result of this project?
Yes, opening day may be a little bit problematic, but after that, we believe that as drivers begin to adjust their behavior and mitigation measures have been implemented, we do think that we're going to have a sustainable system on Wilshire.
Now, we also have a number of projects, and again, Mr. Rosendahl and I will both have the same impacts. In fact, they may be slightly greater in his, because we have the 405 HOV lane construction, we have other projects in that area, and we add this. So how long is that overlapping period, and are we going to create a traffic hell because of those extra projects?
We don't anticipate a problem in the 405 area, in part because this project, if all goes as we hope it will in the next 2 years, within 2 years' time, we'll be talking about the opening of this system. Okay?
So the HOV should be done in about 2 years?
That's the expectation, by 2012.
And with this project, are we anticipating starting closer to downtown and moving west, so hopefully that will catch us there, or are we starting in other
places? Work that we're
places?
talking about would be the resurfacing of Wilshire Boulevard curb lanes. A lot of the improvements that we'll be introducing will be almost invisible. There'll be signal timing changes, there'll be restriping of bus lanes, but those can be done virtually, within a few-week period of time. Also, we're talking about not having the bus lanes immediately at the 405 on-ramps. That's part of the project modification, project alternative. So we don't anticipate, we were very sensitive to the fact that we do have, existing traffic problems there at Sepulveda and the 405. So we are trying to avoid any kind of, worsening of the situation.
The completion date.
How about the timing of the street reconstruction itself?
Well, there wouldn't be any reconstruction right around the 405, in that segment of Wilshire.
And also, the project alternative will exclude the section between Sepulveda and the VA area near 405 freeway. That section, we will not put in the bus-only lane. So that will allow people to get in and out. There's a lot of weavings on the freeway traffic. So we're going to exclude that in the project alternative.
Also, part of the project, we're hoping, in conjunction with the county, to increase the left turn queue pocket for the northbound turn lane from Wilshire going north on Sepulveda. So the folks that are backing up going eastbound on Wilshire, trying to get northbound on Sepulveda, will have more room. That could have a little bit of overlap, but again, we're hoping to get all this construction work done within the next couple of years.
And we would like to come to your office to give you a detailed briefing about the section by section and the impacts.
That would be great. I know you did a number of community meetings. What were the communities that had the best response to this plan and the most negative responses?
We had 4 community, actually we've had 8 community meetings, but the most recent 4, I'd say it was about 90 to 95% positive at 3 of those community meetings. The one where we got quite a bit of opposition was the one up in your area, where I believe we thought it was about a 50-50 split of positive comments and opposition comments.
And were the things that the opposition was based on, are they addressed primarily in the alternative plan that
in
you're
fact,
talking
At
about?
the most recent public meetings, there were comments that said, like the minister at one of the churches that, which church is this?
That was the
Methodist Church on Wilshire Boulevard, said that it was really nice that we were able to accommodate the public's requests into this project. We had listened to the public, we had added their ideas into the project, and that's what we were presented to the public, was our project alternative, which included the public's comments, which meant we were not going to take out the jutouts, we were not going to remove the trees, we were not going to remove the curbs, we were going to leave the jutouts exactly as they are today, we were not going to remove the 86 parking spaces, we're going to leave those exactly as they are today. All this is in the Condo Canyon area, and the DOT agreed to let us take a lane, but not, if we were going to remove the jutouts, we were going to actually add a lane, but if we don't remove them, we're going to take a lane, a traffic lane, the curb lane, and that solved almost all those problems in that one area, that Condo Canyon area, that the public had.
And where we displace cars during the peak hours, where do they go? How much of that do we think turns into people actually riding the bus? How much of it is people displaced onto other parallel streets?
Councilmember, currently peak hour parking is pretty much restricted all along Wilshire Boulevard. So we don't anticipate really getting rid of any on-street parking during
I'm not talking about parking, I'm talking about drivers. So you're taking away a lane of traffic. What happens to those people? Are you anticipating, what percentage are you anticipating starting to take the bus as an alternative? What percentage wind up on other parallel streets?
You have the number?
I think we are, first of all, we're anticipating that the bus speeds there's two things we're trying to get out of this. The bus speed's going up by about 20%, and the consistency of the buses, so that every day it takes you 30 minutes to get from A to B. Tuesdays and Thursdays, it's all the same. And that's what the public's looking for, is consistency and improvement in travel time. And that, we hope, will attract people out of their automobiles. Now, I think we were thinking it was about a 15 or 18% increase in ridership on the transit, which would be huge, because we have about 80,000 to 85,000 people on that Wilshire corridor today, which is the largest public transit corridor in the United States.
85,000?
Correct. Larger than today.
On Wilshire.
Yes.
But it could really be...
Another 15% higher.
42,500, because you got one going east and one going west, right? Or is that total?
That's total, all day. All buses all day. Pardon?
Boardings?
Boardings.
Yeah. So is that east and west, or just...
It's both directions. It's everybody who gets on a bus all day long. And that is the largest, that's the highest ridership line in the United States.
Right. Wilshire Boulevard.
And Councilman Coet, in response to your question, we did look at the numbers, but I don't have the numbers with me. The diversion of traffic from Wilshire to other streets is not very high, but then there would be some percentage of traffic that would be doing the most shift, which is to take the transit. So there's some analysis done through the modeling efforts. We will share those numbers with the office.
Right, because the key is, with all due respect to the people that are already riding the bus, I don't think our concern is that they have a slightly better experience and they get to zip to their destination a few minutes earlier. It's whether we actually get people that don't ride the bus to find it desirable enough to hop on. If that doesn't work and we're only making it better for the existing riders, then the project winds up becoming a disaster and a traffic increase for every other street around. If it actually does what we're hoping, then it becomes a state-of-the-art project that people will be replicating all over the world. But it's not clear to me that we know which way it winds up going. That's my concern.
An example, if I could, is that the Metro Rapid program, when we implemented the Metro Rapid program, we increased the speed of the bus and the frequency of the bus and the consistency of the bus, and the ridership on Wilshire Boulevard went from 90,000 to 60,000 to 90,000 in 3 months. Huge.
That's actually pretty amazing, because from my standpoint, it doesn't even seem like we offered enough to make that change. It seems like the
buses went from
would be much more dramatic in terms of what we're offering.
They became extremely crowded, and we had to add a lot more buses because of that. But from 60,000 to 90,000, that's 30,000 increase, and there's a lot of light rail lines that don't have that at all. in the United States.
Oh, yeah, there's no question, that's a great rider.
And so we're keen on speed and frequency and reliability to get people out of their cars. It has to be competitive with the automobile. They're not going to change. So we're trying to make this competitive with the automobile.
Speed, which I'm very interested in hearing. How much, you're in your car in the gridlock, and the bus won't be in gridlock. Explain how that works, and how that might possibly shorten the time frame.
Yeah, and I shouldn't be saying speed. I should be saying a lot less delay.
There you go.
Okay, because one time I said that the bus would be going faster on the east side of Los Angeles, and then Gloria Molina thought we were going to be running over a lot of people out there. But we're not going any faster. We're just creating just a lot less delay. And that means the buses won't be stopped in traffic. The traffic might be sitting there, as it is today at some of these big intersections, but the buses will continue to go by them, and there's going to be a lot of buses out there every 2 minutes, so the people are going to see a lot of buses in these corridors, just as they are today, by the way. We're not adding any buses. There are no new buses being added as part of this project. With a 20% increase in speed, you get 20% more seats out there for no increase in operating expenses, and nobody has dollars for operating expenses for transit. So we get a big increase in capacity here.
And one of the things that will come out in the EIR is what the travel time estimates would be with these different project alternatives. So you can see in black and white what the actual benefit would be.
And let me just add that we did talk about not removing the jet outs and taking some of this money and adding it someplace else in the project. That was not our decision. We had to ask the FTA whether the Federal Transit Administration would let us spend federal transit money on streets. Very unusual. And they said, okay, if you put that money onto those streets, let's see what we'll allow you to do that. We had to really ask quietly, we'll allow you to do that, but get this project going and up and running quick. Because it's transit money repairing streets. Doesn't happen.
Paul, you finished?
Thank you, yes.
Okay. Rex, also, you're being modest about it. This is like the first, isn't it, from a federal standpoint?
This is the first arterial bus rapid transit in the United States of any significance. There are some short ones that haven't worked well. There are some on some freeways. This is the first significant one in the United States. The second significant one, somebody mentioned earlier, meeting with Jeanette Sadiq Khan. I was just with her last week in New York at NYU. We were both talking about this in a workshop. They're planning on opening bus rapid transit corridors, dedicated corridors on 1st and 2nd Avenue for, 8 miles in front of the UN. And it's huge. But what they're doing is modeling Los Angeles. They like what we're doing out here.
Built for us, because we got to fix those potholes. Unless you speed up the job.
Okay, let me ask you this, Rex, also. If we see 60,000 right now, is what we're saying, in your estimates, too early to obviously go beyond that, what do you think it'll be once we complete this project?
Well, I think we said 80 or 85,000 out there today. We would certainly see 100,000 people on these buses. Mm-hmm.
Very good.
We'd have to. And we'd like to get those people from the cars. That's the whole concept here.
Right. Mr. Parks? You want to add anything to it?
Just another question. What happens when the subway gets built? What do you do with this here?
The
Will you
Metro
still be
Rapid.
as committed as much?
Well, the Metro Rapid is one of those high-speed projects that we might back off on because the Metro Rapid, which has a lot of the same all the same stops as the proposed the rail line that would be extended, we might back off on the Metro Rapid service, but we'd certainly want to continue the local service. So it could be that we maintain these lanes.
Did the federal government ask that question?
Yes, they did.
Okay, good. I would just like to see more of the 725s originate at Western at the end of the subway and get better service out that way, and also those who, whatever. But
we totally agree.
We should all meet, okay? Yeah. And also with Mr. Wesson, who's my colleague on the south side of Wilshire.
Yeah, we plan to do so.
Thank you.
There are no other questions. Let me just go back to your initial comment about timeframes. You said 6 months. What will happen between now and the next 6 months? What goes on?
Can I do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure, please.
This week, we plan on submitting the draft EIR to the federal government, the FTA, and they require at least a 15-day review period where they review and comment on the draft EIR. Assuming that they have some comments, which they probably will, but they know exactly what we've been doing. They've been reading a lot of the words over the last year and a half. We'd have to take a week to incorporate their comments, and then presented to the public for a 45-day public review. It's after that 45-day public review, it then goes back to the FTA for another 15 days because they want to see all the comments that we've gathered from the public. Actually, after that 45-day review, we spend about 2 to 4 weeks incorporating all the public's comments into what we call the final EIR, and then that goes to the federal government because they want to see what the public's comments are, and they want to see how we address them. And they want to make sure we adequately address those public comments. Then, and that takes another 15 days, and then they review that and send it to Washington, D.C., and after that, they want the final EIR to sit for 30 days in the public libraries without anything else other than just for a soak time, basically. At that point, they would issue us what's called a finding of no significant impact, which takes another 3 to 4 weeks. At that point, we would go to LA's board, but they're not meeting in December because as the lead agency, Metro's the lead agency, we go to our Metro board for approval. That would happen in January. If our board approves this in January, we'd go to the city council and county supervisors, because the county's involved in this project out by the 405 freeway. They're adding a lane out by the 405 freeway. That would happen in February. If that happens in February, we turn it over to the city of LA with a letter of agreement, a funding letter of agreement, and you start construction, hopefully in March.
In March, okay. Because the bus riders are very anxious, and they got a lot of anxiousness in their faces there, so.
Oh, I know, this is a long, at this point, we're kind of locked into this schedule that we don't have much control over.
Right. Well, the most important part for me are constituents' buy-in and participation enthusiasm. And Mr. Koretz's area, I respect very much in that aspect. But like we said earlier, we need to get Mr. Wesson and Mr. Reyes, as well as, of course, Mr. Labange and Mr. Koretz on board. Maria, when we recommendations approve DOT's recommendations, what instructions are we giving to this?
It's to receive and file the report and then have them come back in 90 days or so and work with MTA.
And then when they work with MTA, we'll go before the full council? When will we give them a show and
The report back would go to full council, yes. And as Kong was describing, the issues with street services and how we're actually going to do this needs to be laid out during and after the budget deliberations for next year.
If I could reiterate that too, over the next 90 days, as the budget, 10-11 budget shakes out, we're going to work with Bureau of Engineering and see if all the street reconstruction work, depending on our staffing level and our ability to hire, the flexibility there, what our researching program is going to be, we may have to phase out that work, do the work in-house that has to beat the deadline for starting construction, but we may also have to have some of the contract out, depending again what comes out of the budget. So that's why we needed that 90 days on our part from Public Works.
Very good. Okay. Yes, please, Mr. Koretz.
Just one thing I wanted to flag for you. I know I've gotten a couple of objections from the Westwood area about the timing, that if reports come back for community input in the summer, there may be some question about whether that gives everyone an adequate opportunity. So I'm sure there's some folks that will ask for an extension. So I just wanted to flag that for you as something to keep in mind and for your consideration and planning.
Right. We were aware of that. In fact, they called us directly, and that's why we're pushing as fast as we can to get this into the 45-day public review before summer, to at least start it.
That would be great.
And by the way, during that 45-day public review, we have 4 public hearings at the same 4 places that we've had them before, so those will be conducted during that period.
Great. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, so we will move forward with the recommendation to approve DOT's recommendations.
I'll second that.
Mr. Parks. Okay. Thank you so much for that, and appreciate it. Look forward to coming back and moving forward with this project. Maria, I wasn't here in the beginning. Did we continue item 6, Alicon Rosendahl?
Yes, we do. We only have item 3, which is DOT's report on the budget issues.
On consent, item 1 and 2. And now with me here and Mr. Parks here, we can make that unanimous, Mr. Koretz, and before that, Mr. Labange was here. Okay. Now we have the esteemed, august head of the department, I think, coming up. It's DOT to present verbal report for discussion relative to the department's current budget, the submittal of its fiscal year 2010-11 budget, and the impact of early retirement incentive programs, and the possible restructuring of the department operations. Did I read it right there, Maria?
Yes.
Okay. All right, this is item number 3. And so Madam Department Head, Rita Roberts.
Rita Robinson, LADOT General Manager. I know you've had a long day and it's a long time and wait here for the public, but I'll just give you a brief overview of what I think are some of the issues. We haven't received the budget yet. You know, the budget will be released next week, so we're not sure what the real impact would be. We've heard some information about it. But, you know, I thought about some guiding principles as we, even with the staff as we approach this. And in a way, you know, I try to think of analogies that everybody can relate to. So at the point we are with the city, under the current circumstances that you dealt with today with police hiring and all the other things you've heard from other departments, it's sort of like that comb over that's not working for you anymore. You know, you look in the mirror and your delusion is that it's covering that bald spot, but, you know, right now we are exposed. We are totally exposed. The other guiding principle I used in this discussion was Susie Orman, who's the financial guru person on TV. But she has one really good point I like, and she says, first people, then money, then things. And I think that that's one of the things I want to talk about first, are the people. Because in the millions and billions of dollars we talk about and all the shortfalls that we have, at the end of the day, what the city has done well over the many years I've been here and before my time is build an incredible group of people that run this city and make it work. So for the politicians that have come and gone, the staff has still maintained this city and maintained it in such an excellent way and care so much about it. And I have had the distinct honor of having to work with so many different people over the 33 years, whether they're blue collar, white collar, green collar, and everybody in between. And I can only tell you that we have a workforce that is excellent within skill, dedication, and with his heart in the city. And so that's just something you just don't replace. So when you're thinking about the budget, it's first people, then money, then things. And so if we talk about those two things, I think you might get a gist for the kind of pain that we're in right now as we think about this budget that we're kind of boxed into. We have a situation in DOT where it has a very fundamental goal. It has a goal of trying to deal with traffic congestion. It has the goal of trying to deal with streets and markings and signs and pavement. We have traffic officers. You know, when you think of DOT, these are the things that you think about. We have signal design, and signal construction and maintenance, and these are all safety-related kind of issues. The transit piece gets kind of lost because Jim Lefton and his staff run an excellent municipal transit program through Dash, ridership, and City Ride, and all of the services that he runs, but you're going to hear a little bit about that in the future and how the budget's impacted by that. We have an incredible special funded street project that we get projects done. We go to the call for projects with Caltrans and Metro, and we get money for many other projects in your communities to try to build those. So we have a huge special fund project. When you look at the general fund side of DOT, the biggest pieces that we have there are really traffic officers who are revenue generation staff, basically. You have ZACI staff that really are the street people. They do the signage, the pavement, the markings, the signals, all the safety issues. We have ATSAC, which really deals with our signal timing issues. That's a aging structure, even though we're adding to it. We're not, you know, we love to build things, but we really don't do a great job of maintaining and operating them, but we love to build them. We like them all shiny and new. And then your neighborhood district offices that deal with the stuff that neighborhoods are interested in, whether it's speed humps or safety issues that our communities are concerned about. So our general fund piece of DOT is very limited. And we don't have that much there because after you strip away all the special funding, the transit and special projects and construction projects, and you strip away, you look at traffic officers and you say they make way more than they cost. I mean, they bring the citation issuance brings in $134 million a year. So you don't touch what creates, not only do they do citation issuance and citation revenue, but also they do traffic control. They're out there in the street, you know, making sure traffic moves. They're dealing with any kind of emergency situation. When we had all the holes and all the problems last year, they're out there, whether it's at a basketball game or a Staples Center. And even though we get paid for those services to some extent, we just began to be being paid for those services, you still have to have the boots on the street, as they say. So they represent that. So when we're down to just a slither of staff that you can take money from to save money for the general fund, it really begins to cut at the bone of your safety program within the city. Because if we don't maintain our signals, if we don't maintain our markings and our signage, I don't know how many of these that some of you may have heard. I know that Councilmember Parks has heard a number of these in Claims Board. When people have accidents, they want to blame somebody for something that occurred. So if the sign was missing or the signal didn't work or something didn't happen, and many of you in closed session have heard the discussion of how DOT has a lot of litigation exposure. So on our general fund side, this is where we're a little concerned when we get down to the bone of this, how close it's getting to, cut our nose to spite our face. Because, you may save a few $100s there, and then you get a $23 million settlement. So these are some of the things that I think as the budget goes forth that we're very concerned about. And when I talk about people, I'm really concerned about the fact that in all of our departments, and I talk to general managers throughout the city, is that what we're doing now is actually, I think, causing harm to the staff that we have left. Because you can't keep pressing down more and more work to people and expecting excellence to happen. Even with our own children, if you overwhelm them with too much homework, they just want to give up on everything. They just don't feel like they can handle it all. And what we have now, because of ERIP, are our most experienced people finally going out the door, because this has been more like a 2.5-year painful separation. So now people are finally, in the next month, will go. So we'll see how we settle from that. And we in DOT have lost, over 60 very fine people within the department, and many more that are the key people that you call. I mean, you pick up the phone and you call Alan Willis or you call Glenna Gore. These are people that you had on your own speed dial, and they won't be here. So we will have people that have the institutional knowledge, as you might say, leaving the city. And it's been difficult for people. It's been emotional. Every time I go to one of these retirements, it's extremely excruciating for the staff. So they have the crushing feeling of the people that taught them their jobs leaving. And then you have the furlough program layered on top of that. So even people that want to work full-time can't work full-time to fulfill the projects that they need to fulfill. And I'm telling you, I don't know how many staff that I know of really furlough anything. They still work 40, 50, 60 hours a week trying to get the work out. They still are dedicated. These are not, you don't have a staff within the city of LA that says it's, 4:45 and it's time for me to go. You really don't. I mean, you may have that in a few places or in certain levels, but for the most part, the staff of the city will dedicate themselves at home, on weekends, whenever they can to get the work done. So you have the furlough issue there, and I'm really concerned with the next budget if we begin to say that, and I'm a proponent on the special funded side, that furloughs and special funds kind of don't go together because you have the money to pay them. But I'm also concerned about if you have 3 children and you say you're only going to feed 2 of them, because that's what you end up. It's very difficult to manage a bifurcated staff. So you have half the staff on furlough, you have some of the staff on furlough and some of the staff not on furlough. So it's going to be a very interesting process to try to manage that kind of system. And then you layer that problem in the next level of layoffs. So then you cut from the top and the bottom. So you cut some of the brightest, newest people to kind of regenerate the staffing from the bottom. And so that fear that's there has gotten people concerned as well. And how that's going to impact DOT is in places where we really are trying to be innovative, some of the things that we really want to do with multimodal. And I think my real concern to DOT especially, and there's a lot of rhetoric about this, about what can be done, is that really the only thing bringing in money to the city are transportation issues. Whether it's 3010, money we get from funds and grants, because the whole nation sees Los Angeles as being a problem with regard to congestion. So the reason why the federal government is so interested in projects that it wants to fund and actually see built is so that they can relieve some of that congestion. I went to hear Barbara Boxer, and I've talked to Senator Feinstein's office. They want to see some of these projects move, but we can't undermine the infrastructure if we're going to move the money. So we got to build the thing that we're going to, if we're going to do 30-10, we have to make sure we have the staff there to build it. The other problem that we're going to have is skill set. How are we going to have the skilled people that can actually deliver? And what I've been talking to the staff is about how we can kind of coordinate ourselves to meet where we have money, set our priorities, where we have money and we have skill, and what's left. Do we need the supplement of contract staff? Where do we find these people? Are they in other departments perhaps that we can find them, so that we can begin making sure we fill our holes and do that comb over, that we actually know if we're combing over that we're combing over the most vital parts of our bald spots, so that we just don't miss the boat here. Because on 30-10, I'm really concerned that for all the projects you have a great interest in, we have to have skilled people to fill those. So as we move into next year's budget, some of my major concerns is that, number one, that we put ARA first. I know that everybody's been talking about the stimulus money as being the godsend from the heavens, but I keep telling you guys it is a bag full of money filled with 15 black widow spiders. You know, it is an unbelievable process. Remember, it's front funded. We have to front fund it, and then you have to go to the feds to get the money back. Okay, so, and it is tied to so many, I mean, the book is about this thick. I mean, it's just like your income tax code. And the rules have changed. They go back, they go forward. We're working with Caltrans and MTA. We only have a few people in the city that understand it, and God knows they don't quite understand it. And my fear is that not only for all the audits that they're doing on how well we're doing on it, but the fact is that if those costs become disallowed, the city ends up with a liability of costs that we spent that we can't get money for. So ARA becomes first as far as I'm concerned, in making sure that we try to get the rules right, we try to put people there, but it's not the answer to everything, because we had to put so many staff resources into it in order to get the money. You know, you had to put like 15 CPAs on top of it. And you know we're losing our accounting staff because, again, they're general fund. So a lot of that staff is either ripped out, or also we're losing that staff. So just trying to maintain it from an administrative level, not to mention to get the projects done, is problematic for every department. And so we got everybody running toward ARA. And then on the other side, we have to maintain those projects that have money. You just heard the 405 widening project, Wilshire bus only. All of the projects where we have tons of money already put aside in an annual work program that we have to meet, we have to make sure we have adequate staffing there as well. And where we can, and I know everybody says, well, why don't we just contract out? Well, do you know how daunting a contracting out process is in the city? It's at least a year for some of the things that we do in the city. Engineering, thank God, has an ongoing process, but even in that process, somebody has to oversee the contract. If you've ever had anybody do contract work in your house, you just don't leave them there and say, oh, Joe will take care of it, it'll be just fine. You have to have somebody on top of them every step of the way to make sure it's done properly, based on code, and that it's done to your specifications. It's the same way in the city. It's no different in the city than it is in our own house. So our second priority is making sure we have staff adequate to have staffing for projects where we must deliver. And I think I've reminded many of you that many of these projects, to save money and to expedite them, are on design build. And design build means that you have a progress step-by-step plan, and if we are the ones that are to delay, the contractor can come back and get money from us. We're seeing this already on the MTA board with Expo 1, that because we've caused delays, the contractor is now saying, you owe me money. You owe me even more money. And it's now 2 years in arrears. And we don't want that to happen. We want to learn from that so we don't do the same thing on Expo 2, Crenshaw, the Orange Line, all of those projects coming in the future. So I have my staff trying to think of, okay, what key design and staff do we need for this, and what is the low-hanging fruit we have left that we can give to a contractor so that we don't do everything? Because it's also a culture shift in the city. The city has always been used to doing its own thing. And now it has to realize we need to share, expand and share. We got to let contractors be our friends to help us through some of the less critical areas, and then we can do some of the more critical work ourselves, because we just don't have enough to cover the bald spot anymore. We have to admit that we don't. And then the third thing that I think is really important is that we don't lose track of those things that are safety oriented, whether it's our ad stacks, our signs, and other things, that we must maintain a level of stability within the city that provides safety and litigation coverage, tort liability coverage. We just can't just say, just cut all those people in asset, cut all those people in signal, construction, and design, because these are the things that keep us safe as a city. So even though we've cut down to a great level, we know that we have to keep a certain level of crews available to respond to emergency situations. I mean, we have so many signs that are just knocked down by traffic accidents. We have to replace that signage so that people know what to do. If those signals are out of, I mean, you've seen accidents where the signals are just totally blown over. We have to go out and reconstruct those signals. And so a lot of this is not just let the contractor do it. A lot of this is also what our crews have to do in order to prepare the contractor to do the work. So we want to maintain at least a level of coverage there over the next year. And I think what you need to take into consideration with ERIP and other problems is that the city has to, it's like when you have a heart attack, you don't just recover overnight. It's a process of recovery. The city has suffered a tremendous heart attack with the loss of people through ERIP. And the staff needs to recover from that loss in order to get ready for the next wave of losses, whether it's layoffs or more staff cuts or more work. So we need a year to kind of get our sea legs back as we let the dust settle and reconstruct ourselves and let us rebuild in a way that makes some sense to the entire city. And that's why I publicly want you to know, as well as the city to know, that I'm not afraid of the next year having a discussion, once all the dust settles in all the departments, of how we can take all the little bit we all have left and make it work. Whether that means that if street services loses tremendous numbers of people, or BOE, if combining some of our efforts together makes some sense, let's sit down and talk about that. There's been a whole lot of rumors about DOT becoming part of Public Works. So my point is that, okay, we can have all of those discussions, but let's have them after the dust settles in the next year, so that we can do something that's smart. Let's not just do something and say that it solves the problem. DOT has tons of money on the special fund side. We're only lacking a little bit on the general fund side. Other departments have huge general fund liability, and they may lose a lot, so there might be some synergy in us getting together. But you just don't marry the first person you date. You want to make sure that you spend some time looking at the field and saying, okay, what makes some sense, so that we can have a process that comes into next year's budget that kind of starts closing the gap around what the city plan is. As I had said some months ago, is that, if you decide to remodel, you just don't blow down the house and then said, oh, I forgot to do a plan. We know now that we have some dismantling. Let's plan smartly for how we move into the future as we look at what our priorities are. And this is not the time to mute the voice of DOT, because it is really the economic engine that creates jobs, that will create the vitality for people to come back to the city and to develop in the city. Our planning section already sees the seeds of development coming forth. So though I don't know exactly what numbers that we're going to end up with, I don't anticipate that DOT will lose tremendous amounts, because we didn't have tremendous amounts to give after we cut out traffic officers. But we realize we're going to have to support our partners in Public Works in order to get our projects done, and figure out ways that we can align with them closer so that projects can get out the door and we can spend this money to revitalize the economy, and also have 3010, ARA, and our safety program intact. Now, you'll hear separately, I think we have a joint committee next week on the transit side. So you'll hear real numbers then. You might want to bring, you know, your heart palpitation pills with you, because it is daunting, the amount of cuts that we may have to look at, or how we might have to use other money to supplement the cuts that we're looking at. And I know there are a lot of you who have sent letters to say, you know, certain lines you don't want cut. And we've taken lots of public comment on this. We've also looked at ways of trimming versus cutting. But at the end of the day, even with fare increases, we still are going to have to look at some cuts in our transit program. So I really want you to understand realistically that we can't sustain the level of service that we currently have and keep going. Eventually, I'll have to just cut off all service if I can't pay the bill. So I really want us to look at this in a way that we can really get through the next year and meet some of our shortfalls. So I don't know if you had specific questions. I don't know if there were, you know, when I get numbers next, I mean, we'll have budget hearings from here to yonder once we get the budget, and I can, you know, then we can tell you everything. But right now, this is my anticipation, is that DOT will be hit somewhat, but because we have so much money, and we also are bringing in so much money, we probably won't be devastated by this next year's budget.
Well, Rita, first I want to say I'm very impressed without you reading notes or anything. You just spoke for 25 minutes and covered the whole areas from a general standpoint, and those three specific issues that you pointed out so well. The number one issue, a couple issues I have. First is any general funded position that impacts the ARA money or impacts whatever other money there is, those positions are critical for those special funded positions.
Correct.
So I hope within the discussions with the mayor's office and the budget that they understand, I don't want to use an old colloquialism, you just said the first person you want to marry, is I don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot. Because if that person, you know, of course it's so obvious when you talk about a parking enforcement person, because they generate all those 100 and something million you just said. But I'm more interested right now in those accountant types and those other types that are critical to getting that support money from the federal government, or making that happen when the documents are so thick. So as this process goes forward, please be candid with us, because we truly want to see ourselves develop the transportation dreams that we all talk about, especially since a good amount of your money comes from these special funds. Nothing that impacts that special funds and lessens it do I want to see any situation with. Have those discussions been fruitful with
Oh,
the mayor's
absolutely.
office?
You know, I'm not a shy person under any
Yeah.
circumstances, so I've been having we've had many good discussions, and because, you know, the mayor saw fit to put me on the MTA board and to really be a transportation voice, I've had these discussions directly with the mayor about the fact that the infrastructure of what we need to do in DOT, both on the general fund side and on the special fund side, has to be maintained to some extent. So we are very confident that they're listening to that response. And so that's the reason why I know that most likely, from what we hear from our budget analysts, that we have, you know, kept a level of, you know, with all the problems we're having citywide. I mean, you know, we know the level of hurt, so we understand our fair share has to go forth, but we don't want to damage anything terminally if we can help it, especially in our special fund side.
When you talk about the wise sages that are leaving, like you mentioned Alan Willis, when is his last day?
Well, Alan probably won't leave until June, and Mike, when I got a few of them to stay, Morgan, those people to stay
And
until
people
June
like
5th.
him, say they do leave, because this is the program, are there a certain amount that you might contract back that are necessary to train the next generation of management team, and also to make sure certain projects don't fall through some kind of a dark hole that nobody knew about because they don't have the history?
Right, absolutely. And one of the things I've been pushing is the fact that 90-day employment opportunities must be allowed for rebuilding of the city over the next year. That's why I understand that as much as we're grappling with the numbers, we have to take care of the people. So I will be coming back with requests for 90-day employees from those that, you know, took early retirement. Not for everybody, just for key areas so that we can at least keep things moving especially training on ARA, some people that were key to making sure the department can maintain itself over the next year or two while we regroup and restructure, because I really want to see after the dust settles where our biggest ball spots are and make sure we cover those.
Okay, Mr. Parks. I was just let you know, I think what you covered was very impressive. I just wondered, through all of that, you never mentioned SPRF.
I didn't avoid SPRF, but I know that we've been in discussion with the mayor's office with regard to the P3 project that's going forth, and we, of course, you know, we worked really hard with you with regard to making sure that we get the money for the parking study, which is be coming forth in the future. I don't know much about that project, but I know they're moving expeditiously to try to make sure they have a deal to bring to the council for your consideration. And we understand that we have SPRF money. We've already told them that we need of whatever they indicate as surplus. So we have identified what our needs are, and so I think they'll be coming forth with a report that covers our needs, and we're also let them know that over the next 5 years we want to have a plan for maintenance under the Special Parking Revenue Fund that covers the essential needs upon the department side. And, you know, if I can say a word about some of the things on the parking side, Amir and Dan Mitchell and his staff have been doing such an exceptional job. You know, we'll be coming out with the Express Park RFP next month. We will be rolling out the leased meters for the 10,000 meters that you graciously allowed us to go sole source on within the next 90 days. So you'll see new meters in all of your areas within the city so that we can bump up that revenue and start bringing some dollars into the city. So no matter what you choose on the P3 project, whether it's just the garages or the garages and the meters, our plan is just to be able to increase the revenue over the next year and get workable, reliable meters on the street to serve the public. So we really appreciate your confidence in us.
Mr. Parks' point about, you've told me this, anywhere from 14 to 17% of the meters are broken.
Mm-hmm.
Are they the first effort to get them going?
We took our highest revenue generating broken meters and we're replacing those first, but assure me every council district in the city will get some of the new meters that are there. And when Express Park comes, we'll take some of those meters out and we'll recycle them in other areas.
Very good. Now, I know my colleague, Mr. Smith, CD12, has said for years, he's been saying, hey, take a look at my area, and let's get some meters in there if it makes sense. Are we going to survey his district and maybe district number 7? Which
yes,
also
as we begin to get newer and newer meters over, once you make a decision of, first of all, the lease meters are for us to replace broken meters within the city in the highest revenue areas. Once you make a decision on P3, whether you're going to go with a concession type process, which will replace the meters, or something different, then we can look at how we'll spread new meters to other areas of the city of Los Angeles. So that decision will be coming to you sooner or later, and we'll follow whatever policy you demand on that area.
Mr. Koretz.
I'm sorry, Mr. Parks. One of the things I want to make sure is that, you know, and we've been steady by jerks, we just go and then we get pushed back and forth. I want to make sure that a couple of things happen, that on the meters, that as soon as the 10,000 are in place and we all applaud that we're making more money, I think step 2, you have to be able to have an RFP for the other 17 to 20,000 meters ready to go so we can get that integrated process.
Right. Well, remember, the first part of that integrated process will be Express Park, which will go out in May, which will replace 6,000 downtown meters. And then once you make a decision on P3, that will cover the remaining meters within the city and any new meters that you want within the city.
Express Park is part of what, Caltrans?
That's Express Park is part of the federal money that we got for the hot lanes, as well as the downtown directional parking, and it'll be the beginning of that integrated system. So this will be like our test market, and then we'll be able to piggyback on top of that with regard to the rest of the city's integrated program.
The other thing is that we've been using the SPRF money like a piggy bank, and there's really a need to, as we just did a motion asking for you to have a rolling 5-year plan. So as part, if we ever get to the point of saying we're going to, quote, identify surplus should be that above and beyond what you need for over a 5-year cycle of upgrading technology, for both meters and parking lots, and also debt service, so that we make sure that those funds are dealt with. And then also, if the borrowing occurs, it has to be paid back. And I have Monique looking for that ordinance we've been waiting for now for about a year. And if I'm not mistaken, that fund is one that we need an annual ordinance to create the surplus. And we've been waiting for a year. The first ordinance, as you know, was written in a fashion you had to pay yourself back. We said that's not what paying back means, so we wanted it written more explicit. So those are things I'm concerned about, is that we get these first group of 10,000, which goes with the first 7,000, but we're prepared to do the remaining 17 to 20,000, but we have to protect that resource so we don't get into a situation like the P3 on the parking lots. We depress an asset and then we say, let's sell it because it's depressed. You say, well, the reason it's depressed is that we've never invested in it. We've never put it in a situation to where technology could have raised the amount of money. Then you go at a fire sale and you end up selling them. With the numbers we hear, it's significantly below what we owe of it.
Well, we haven't, I don't know what the numbers are. I know they're just in the point of vetting all the qualified bidders, and I know they're going to be coming back to you to discuss what the deal points might be, as the task force has said, but we have taken in consideration and shared with the CAO staff all of those issues that you brought forth, and in this next allotment, they have set aside the money for next year for all the operating expenses. As you know, Cirque du Soleil is coming to town. All of the things that we need to upgrade and also maintain our lots have now been taken into consideration by the CAO's office, and they will be coming forth with that report to you. And I think they'll be talking to your office directly on some of the questions that you've had.
Yeah, and I don't think, from what I've seen on the council, I don't know of anyone that said the meters are part of a deal. I mean, that's another one.
That's what they're coming back. That's what they're coming back with the 180,000 that you approved for the study. That's what the task force will be coming back to discuss with you. And that's why I said once you decide on your policy and you give us direction, we'll follow your direction.
All right, thank you.
Very good. Mr. Krebs.
Yeah, a few comments and then one specific area. First of all, I like what you said about the 90-day returns, because I think it's very important that we have the ability to access the people that have the knowledge. And I would hope we don't even limit that to 1 year, that we keep feeling the freedom to be able to pull back people that we really need for the institutional memory. I think that's real important. Also, I hate the idea of furloughing special funds. From my point of view, fairness be damned, we're way past the point where we have the luxury to just deal with morale issues. I mean, people get what they get. Some people are getting laid off. I mean, obviously, their morale is going to be worse than if they're still working, but somebody else is being paid a little more because they're special funded. I mean, we can't afford to keep furloughing these people, and whatever we can do to get out of that mess, I certainly would encourage that. I'm hoping that not only will we not cut traffic enforcement and parking collection folks, but I'd actually like us to increase them up to the point where they're diminishing returns, because those are two real good opportunities for revenue enhancement without having to pass tax increases and fee increases, and certainly improve public safety and everything else. So I certainly support that. And one thing I heard a couple folks suggest, and I have no idea if this is urban mythology or not, but that some of our meters that fail, that's because we don't collect the money from them frequently enough, and sometimes because they're full they may go to fail, and then a heavy truck will drive by and the money will move around a little bit and suddenly they won't be failed anymore and people will get tickets. If it's true that part of that is because we don't collect the money fast enough, we would certainly have to be losing money net by not hiring more people to collect it. Is that actually true?
Now, what we've been finding out, we've been very much, our Circle, our company that's been our collector company, has been working with us on all of those issues. They've bumped up the number of people that are out collecting. They're collecting more often on those meters that we know are taking the $4 an hour and the $3 per hour. So those were the ones where the quarters were filling up the barrel, so now they're out there collecting those on a much more frequent basis. So we haven't had that problem as much. It's just that our meters are old and decrepit. So those are the reasons why we want to replace them and make sure that they work. And after that discussion we had with your committee with regard to failed meters and citations, is that if the person saw that it was failed and they can call us and tell us, or take a picture of it. I've done all of that, and they are ticketed. We do not allow, they don't have to pay the ticket. So, but they have to report it. They just can't say that it was failed.
Well,
but we are working on the collection side, and Circle has certainly bumped up collection of those meters.
Well, I will say, I know a couple folks personally that I know are ethical and reliable that have had those kinds of claims where they've had a meter that was failed, came back and got a ticket, made the point and asked them to check it out, and then they were just told, no, pay the ticket.
Yeah, well, we've really, because after we had the reports, one of the reasons
It's
why...
still happening.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
I know
very
it
recent
happens.
occurrence.
And what we do is ask people to document the failure of the meter. Just because they tell us later, but if they call the number, which we have the stickers on, for them to tell us that the meter was failed, and they didn't pay, because at this point they can't pay, or they don't pay because it's failed. If something happens and it readjusts itself and they do get a ticket, then them reporting it failed is what saves them from having to pay the ticket.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah,
Okay.
they have to report it though.
Now, the one area I did want to talk to you about, which hasn't been mentioned, I think in my constituency, is actually perhaps the number one funding issue. It's just that no one ever imagined that it might not be fully funded and fully treated. I think if we actually did cut back, people would flip out even more than cutting police, which is permit parking districts.
Yeah.
And I've heard that we're talking about making cutbacks that could make them much less functional. What's the current status and the anticipated future status of
We
those?
anticipate, number one, not accepting any more requests because we just don't have the staff to handle the requests. And
For new
we talked
districts.
about any new requests, because we want to maintain at least those that we do have. Now, we do have a proposal, because this is general funded, is that if we maintain it, we have to maintain a certain level of staff as we go through new procedures, because we're going to talk about new procedures next year of how to handle preferential parking. But the first step we're going to take is telling you that we will not accept any new ones, because we just can't keep the volume up. It's like Lucy and Ethel in the candy machine now. And so that's what we're doing. We're stuffing them all over the place. So Yadi and his staff have been working diligently to try to keep up. What we want to do is stop May 1st on any new ones, look at a plan for maintaining, and then talk to the council offices regarding how we'll move forward with the task force discussions about how to maintain preferential parking in the future. Make the temporaries permanent, make them temporary forever, because we just won't have enough people to cover the staffing anymore of it. I mean, even with ERIP and everything else, we're down to bare bones on that.
And I'm not sure how to deal with it, but I know I've had at least one situation in my district where there's a festering 20-year problem around the Museum of Tolerance, which ultimately had a recent settlement, and virtually everything has been resolved. But a significant piece of solving the problem will be putting in a permit parking district around there. And there's absolutely no way that we could possibly accept not having that go in.
I understand everybody has the things they can't accept, but the reality is that we don't have enough people to cover all of the requests. We just don't. It's just like I kept telling you guys about special events. It's like, if I don't have the staff to go out and cover it, I can't really pay them to do it. So we can take case-by-case emergencies, but we will, if you have to study and have staff out at meetings and all the things that we have to do with the limited number of people we have, we'll have to look at the priorities of what's an emergency and what isn't an emergency, and how we can work with you. As always, I'm always willing to work with you. The one thing I'm not going to let fall through the cracks is safety. I'm not going to let children or adults or any of our constituents be hurt. But at the same time, that we have to stop some things in order to get our sea legs back. So we'll work with your office with regard to those things that we see as emergencies. There's certainly things, Councilmember, we want to do too. We want to do the bikeways, we want to do the Charros, we want to do the bus-only lane. There are some things that I think are just incredible ideas. I wish I was New York and that I could just magically make things happen, but at this point in it's almost like the best of times and the worst of times. We have money, we have energy, we have activists, we have people that are excited, and now we don't have any staff to do any of it. So, you either we used to have none of that, we used to have all of that, and we didn't have any money. So now we got money, we got activism, but now we have no staff. So what I want to do is try to think of those priorities that we make sure we cover, and we'll work with you, our staff will work with you with regard to those things you see as your priority, but is it your priority? There are 14 others that have their priority too, so then it becomes another pressure for us to try to solve everybody's problems. So one of the things that John Fisher started last year was an annual work program document that said this is what you get in your district over the next few years, over the next year. And then we had to scale that back. Then we met with all the council offices and said, well, this is all we can do. And I think our district offices, those things just can't be covered because not only is it people, but it's the skill set. We only have so many people that know how to do these skills within the city and outside of it. So if we pull all those people to do our special fund and stuff, our general fund people don't have that staff anymore. So that's the reason why it's getting harder and harder to cover that bald spot.
Now, as far as permit parking, you're not talking about, or are you going to the point where you might not be able to send out new permits to people or make them?
No. We'll sustain the program we have with the people that are there. We just won't be taking new districts in until we can get some type of settling of the staffing that we're going to have in order to cover that.
And anything we can do to try to supplement staff that work on that particular
We can
arena?
talk about that. We can talk about it, but either we have a body or we don't, or we can talk about technology helping us, buying online. We're looking at all the other things that we can do to help ourselves.
Yeah, I know being able to renew online is certainly one way that might make it easier.
And then so we're looking at all of those too. The one thing I don't paint is the dismal destruction picture. Our staff, I met with some staff this morning who have just been devastated by the amount of workload. They just can't take on much more in order before they break. So my concern is that we don't kill off the people that we still have here, that we try to prioritize and give them a little bit of breathing room so they can still continue to perform. I just don't want them to feel overwhelmed. So where there are emergencies or issues that we need to address, we will. We certainly will. We never let you down there. And there are other things that will just fall off that will just have to fall to the bottom of the list.
And just one last technology thought, in addition to ordering them online, people have suggested to me that they'd be able to print out their permits online.
Absolutely.
As I found, when the Angels had the playoffs and I wanted to get some tickets, you now can buy a several $100 ticket, but you can buy it online, and they figured out all the security issues. So it seems like if we could do that for people, that might save a lot of money and time and staffing.
It's an excellent suggestion,
as well.
and we actually have technical staff that are working on all of those ideas across the city. If you recently may have heard the Film LA, our business solutions staff were able to do a Film LA technology-based, web-based process that now they can order with street closures and signage and everything right online in real time and communicate with our staff. So yeah, it was like a wow moment. I mean, they stood up and applauded the staff for coming up with this. It took us several months to get there, but letting the staff go, this is where I tell you, you have some of the best people in the world in the city. Yeah. And if you give them something to do and you give them the room to do it and you support them, they will deliver every time. But we have to allow people a little breathing room to do that. You have to allow them the time to work it through. You have to give them a lot of support. And once you let them go, they will perform for you. And I mean, I don't care if they're blue collar guys out there collecting trash or guys that are painting the curb or doing pavement markings, or whether they're accountants that are stressing over ARA. Folks deliver in this city, and that's the reason why I'm still here loving them every day, and I will protect them to my nth degree to make sure that they at least get what they need, at a minimum of what they need. And I am very fortunate that I have many of your support, all of your support, and the mayor's office support. I mean, there's absolutely no disconnect here. You know, the mayor's office and our department work very closely because it's near and dear to them as well. So where we may even have issues, we don't have issues that we can't overcome. We really don't have issues we can't overcome.
Well, it's a nice way to end your conversation, and I agree with you. And look forward, and as the budget process goes on, that any one of those positions that impact the revenue from ARA, impact any other revenues we have to make sure that they survive. Okay. Any other questions?
I think that's the comment. We're going to try to resolve that special fund, because it really serves little purpose to accumulate special funds, and the community gets no service, the city doesn't get the overhead money in its budget, and you're just, at the end of the day, counting money that should be out in the community. And then if we ever have to return it, it's a double whammy.
I don't even want to think about sanctions. I don't want to think about other things that could impact us down the road. So that's the reason why I'm really passionate about it. And I also want to thank all of you, at least for the opportunity to have this discussion with you prior to even the budget being released. And I'm sure we'll be able to work through this. I know I don't envy any of you, because I know that making decisions between police services and park services and it's really difficult to decide what to do and how to do it and make it fair for everybody and try to serve everybody's needs. But we're right here as your partners, and we'll do everything we can, and we try to address what the community wants as well. I mean, we're not, I know we get jammed because they say, well, we don't ever want to move, but within the framework that we have, we try to move faster than ever to do some of the things that the city really wants to do, that we really need to do to make this a multimodal movement city.
Thank you, Rita. Any other comments? And Maria, are we finished? And there's no public comment cards here. Does anybody want to speak from the public? Did you? Yeah. Make sure you fill out a card.
Oh, okay.
All right, but go sit down first. Yeah, tell us your name and do the first. No, go ahead. Do that first.
All right. I work for one of the largest.
Name for the record.
My name is Dennis Hyman. I work for one of the largest corporations in the world. Quest Diagnostics is the largest laboratory in the world. And they've gone through, 3 years ago, something similar to what the city's going through. They lost a large contract with a HMO, and they had to adjust. They laid off 10% of the people. But what they also did was they went out of their way to found more efficient ways to do it. They cut $550 million out of operation. And I can see various things in the city. Going back to the paving the streets, is anybody aware that the priority has been to pave the side streets, the residential, low-volume streets? Going by bicycle, I can see this throughout the valley. It's been commented on. The Bel Air was done that way. The entire valley. And the main arteries have not been paved. Why is the focus not on the ones that have the high volume for the streets? It seems to be by time rather than need.
I think, tell you exactly why. Every street in the city has been computerized in the sense of microfit paving, and they grade the streets A, B, C, and D, and F, and their goal is to keep streets without failing. And the reason that many of the major streets aren't paved is there's holes on it. There's about 100 and some odd different agencies in the state that can basically put a hole on the street because they're going to put a pipe under it, or they're going to dig a sewer.
But my comment, though, with the side streets, they didn't need to be paved, though. There was nothing wrong with them.
No, but I'm saying they pave them or they slurry them to keep them from failing.
Yeah, we rank them 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Mm-hmm.
And those that cost like $1 versus $7, to keep them in that kind of shape is done. Those that cost $7.
Well, I was told by one of the traffic engineers, the reason why you'll see a series of side streets paved like that is because they go out there with the equipment and they just keep going. And they can't afford to do more than a block or two at a time.
All right, thank you very much for that end of public comment, and the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you very much. Thank you, Maria. Can you fill out a card? Please do, for the record.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
If you guys have a resolution, now you need to